Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Complaint Free Life. And here is your host today to talk about rejection story. And I was inspired to talk about this story after having conversation with Joanna Hayes in our transitioning humanitarians live session that we're talking about, because she talked about her story of rejecting, and I wanted to reflect on it myself about how it's showing up in my own story, how it continues to show up, and what am I doing to actually change that story. So, rejection, the way that I have experienced it, and probably for psychologists, there will be a totally different experience or definition things to talk about, but I want to speak only from my own experience to highlight how it might be affecting your life in the way that you actually do not want to be affected by. So, rejection is for me the act of not self acceptance. So, in other words, the act of not accepting myself or not accepting some parts of me and trying to remove it and get rid of it. This is how I experience rejection. And it's also the act of heavily criticizing myself, judging myself for how this is not how I want to be, or how this is not how I want to have this in my life. So, if I was to give you a visual aid, it would be like having a mold that you don't like in your body, right? Or a pimple or whatever it is, like maybe it's on your face and you don't like it and you want to like physically remove it because you're so annoyed by it. You feel like this is the only thing that's stopping you from enjoying all your life and being happy, and therefore you just want to get rid of it. This is the rejection I'm talking about. And I've been looking at my whole life when I was reflecting about rejecting, and I want to give you some of the examples of how I've been doing it and how that has been affecting my life, so that maybe you can also see in your life how this could be also happening for you in your life. Sorry, I see that a lot of my markers ink is here. Anyway, so how this has been affecting you and how it actually prevents you from getting to the goal that you want as long as you keep rejecting some parts of you or all of you, right? I think I told you this story before, but the pinnacle of me rejecting myself was the time when I was 16 and I tried to commit suicide. I think that was the pinnacle of when I really wanted to kill myself for not having all the things that I didn't want to have in my body, in my life, in my characters, and everything. And I just wanted to get rid of myself. I think that was the most extreme way that I rejected myself in life. But I feel like there are many other examples that maybe you can relate to, that I have been rejecting myself like all my life, basically. One of them is that I'm not lovable, that I'm not likable, that I'm not beautiful, that I am ugly, right? So this is the ways that I was rejecting myself, that no one really cares what I want to say. What I say is not important. Or the other one that I used to reject myself is I shouldn't be even allowed to live, or I shouldn't be even allowed to be existing because I'm not worthy, or I'm useless, or I'm not good at this and I'm not good at that. Or I'm stupid, or whatever the versions of that I heavily had in my life, that I was like, I remember there were the times that I wanted to like physically get rid of those parts of me and throw it away. right? Like I remember I had jaw issues, and my lower jaw was forward than my upper jaw, and this always created this image in my head that I'm not beautiful, that I'm very ugly, and no one wants to look at me. I have a big face or whatever else. That I was like constantly busy. Wanting to even physically change things. And if I can't physically change and hurt myself, then I would do that with my words, with my thoughts of how I should be this and I should be this and I'm not. So this is the way that I feel like I've been like an expert in rejecting myself. And even when I'm thinking about those years of torturing myself, I feel very emotional about it, and I'm trying not to cry here, but you get the sense of how that was showing up. And what happens is obviously that whenever I am struggling with myself, whenever I am in conflict with myself, a contradiction with myself, I then try to prove to be better. I prove to be smarter. I prove to be um, liked by other people, right? So I used to have relationships where it's almost sounded like, please love me. If you love me, then I will love myself. I need a proof that someone loves me so that I can love myself with my ugly body, with my ugly face, or whatever it is that I was rejecting. Or the other way that it would show up would be like, I'm ready to work 24/7 so that I can hear you approve me. So I can hear you say that I am intelligent enough to be doing this work, that I am smart enough to be doing this work, or that I deserve to be doing this work. Because if I don't get that validation, or I don't get that approval and confirmation from others, then I'm not in a condition to confirm myself. But the problem was that because essentially I was rejecting myself, um, even getting that from other people wouldn't be enough, right? So I wanted more, I wanted differently, I wanted this. And sometimes even I would be working so that I don't think about those thoughts of how ugly I am, how bad I am, how not loved I am, how I'm not important, how I shouldn't really exist. Obviously, my experience might fall under the more extreme cases, but the way that I have experienced myself is so torturous. So, like, either I have to be doing something to not pay attention to all the thoughts, or I need to be thinking about those thoughts and trying to like get rid of it and fix it and repair it so that I can like feel good about myself. This is the type of rejection that I'm talking about. Now, of course, we could always, look at and speculate as to where it comes from and how it came from and how I was programmed from childhood. I'm sure in some parts, maybe physiological things that affected me, right? So there might be many reasons why this came to exist. But what I want to really offer here is that whatever the reasons were back then, they don't need to predict or control how we're doing and feeling now. Because I recognize that a lot of that was from my childhood, from my adoption story, from my suicide story, and all the other things, from my physiological appearance story, right? So all of that is coming from that. But I have realized that I, of course, can't spend a lot of time digging into how it came about and why it came about. And I feel like maybe there will be a time in the future where I will definitely look at the psychoanalytical, I don't know, a psychiatrist looking at some of the, childhood stories. But for me, functioning today, and for me wanting to live a fulfilled life, what I have come to realize is what is the first step, at least that helped me, for me, is, looking at all this story and looking at this constant battle, constant race with myself, constant contradictions with myself, and constant urge to be liked by others so that I can like myself. And after having experienced all of this and being tired of that, I have realized that let me just accept what's happening, right? Factually, what's happening is I am trying hard to get rid of myself, to reject myself, to eject myself out of myself. And once I realize that this is what I'm doing, right? This is actually what's happening in my head. This is what I'm doing, and accepting that. Like, instead of denying and fixing and trying to look another way, distracting, suppressing, instead of all of those things, if I just accepted that this is the fact of what's happening. And once I did that, my body's like, okay, this is what's happening, right? So another way that I think you can also look at it is like observing it. And I love when we are able to observe our thoughts, observe of what's happening. So this is what I did essentially, is like observing all of that, what's happening. Of course, it took some time, right, to get there. Not being in my own head, but just looking at myself from a side as if, and say, this is what's happening, accepting it. That was the beginning of the change, at least for me. Like saying things like, I'm the person who does not like my body. I'm the person who does not like this. I'm the person who wants to eject myself, reject myself. I'm this person who is doing this. Okay, this is what's happening. Or I'm the person who judges heavily others. I'm the person who does not like others for XYZ things. Right? Because rejecting ourselves does not really manifest in us struggling within ourselves, but also wanting to judge others and heavily judging them and saying, this is how you should be and you're not, and this is how you should show up and you're not, and therefore I'm going to judge you and I'm going to hate you and I'm not going to like you. You are physically not pleasant for me. Or the opposite is also what I've noticed, is that not only that I tend to judge people for certain appearances or certain behaviors, but I could also judge people positively for how handsome they are or how beautiful they are, and they must be naturally or automatically this and that, and putting myself in the inferior position, right? So I have done all of those things until I have realized, and this was thanks to coaching, that I have realized that I have the ability to just accept of what's happening by observing myself. Right? So like just observing that this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing with myself. Being aware maybe is another way of looking at it. Being aware of this is what I'm doing. And once I do that, then looking at how can I accept myself? Another way of looking at it would be, what if these are all my thoughts about myself? right? So obviously my physiological issues with my jaws were the physical facts, but what I thought about them were my thoughts. So when you accept things, when you accept what's happening, what is great is also to look at them and say, these are all the things that I was thinking the whole time. What if they were just optional? And I think that's also one of the biggest lessons I've learned from coaching is that whatever we're thinking about ourselves are optional. But in order to get to realizing that this is optional, we need to be able to observe those thoughts to be thoughts and not facts. There are certainly facts there, but what we're thinking about those facts are the ones making us behave in the way that we don't want to be behaving. So I think I have done a lot of work on accepting myself, of who I am and what thoughts I keep having about myself. And once I have done that, then I've decided, what do I want to do with those thoughts? Right? So even if I keep having those thoughts of I'm not this and I'm not supposed to be this and I'm supposed to be this and whatever of supposed to, accepting it and saying, no, this is what it is. This is how I am. This is what I'm thinking. What do I want to do about it? These are the thoughts I'm having and what do I want to think about it? Do I really want to be thinking about this or I want to do something else? Also, looking at the consequences of those thoughts are really important. For instance, one of the heaviest beliefs about myself was I'm not liked by other people. I don't know how to connect with people because they don't like me, which essentially was really what I was thinking is I don't like me, right? And whenever I don't like me, what I do is the consequences is I try to either be liked heavily or I try to hide and not to be seen. And if someone looks at me, I get all anxious and as if to say, please don't look at me. Right? So this is the consequences of me believing that I'm not liked. And whatever I'm going to say does not matter because I'm not liked. So you can see how that consequences is that either leads me to wanting to be liked by others all the time or hiding from others all the time and just keeping myself small and doing only things that does not make me look visible. The other one is that I've noticed recently that came up also is that whenever I was rejecting like my current certain experiences of the past, over the recent past, like one of the ways that it would show up in my life is like, this organization that I worked for, they didn't do this and this and this and this way. There are people who are like this and this, and I would heavily judge them and criticize them. And as if trying to, again, to get rid of them or get rid of my experience and trying to talk trash about it or trying to be reproaching about it and saying, look how bad they are and how good I am here, kind of a polarized view of things, right? So this is also when I realized that, wait a minute, I'm actually, again, trying to reject my experience of what was there. And instead of looking at that experience neutrally and say, what did I learn? What did I didn't want to do this again? How do I not want to be doing certain things the way that I did before? Instead of doing that, I was more like, no, I don't want to do anything about it, or I just want to shove that experience away, or I want to just put it in the box and never look at it and just get away. Do you see how I'm saying that this shows up even nowadays in some of my experiences? And then whenever I do that, what happens is that I'm not really prepared to look at the past or whatever the experience I'm trying to get rid of in a way that serves me, in a way that I can take the lesson from it and not do that anymore, but just avoid it, just suppress it, and just trying to get rid of it. And put everyone in this box of everyone is like that or everyone is this, which is not true, obviously. And once I realized that I worked on that and I accepted all of my thoughts about it and how judgmental I'm being, and looking at those thoughts and then looking at what their consequences are, and then deciding that this is not how I want to be thinking about it, this is not how I want to learn my lesson, by being bitter, skeptical, pessimistic, and judgmental, just to put everyone in the box and then just get away from it. I don't want to be doing that because that doesn't serve me and that doesn't bring any lesson for me to learn. Once I remove all of that judgmental tone, right, then I start looking at how I was feeling in those experiences, how I was showing up in those experiences. Do I want to continue showing up in those ways or not anymore? Right? Because those lessons teach me that I do not want to be showing up in the victim mode anymore. I don't want to be showing up in the way that I feel powerless, that many things don't depend on me, that I'm just a victim in the system, or I'm just a victim in this thing. I don't want to show up that way. And I don't want to be allowing any system or any people to, I don't want that to influence me in a way that I just keep being the powerless person. I want to be part of the change. I want to be part of the improvement. And I want to be part of that improvement by first accepting myself, by first being able to tap into my power to decide what I want to do with those things. So that's why whatever the version of rejection that may be coming up for you, I can get you and I can feel you, because that's a very heavy thing that we get into when we continue fighting with each other, with ourselves, within ourselves, trying to get rid of something that we don't want to have and rejecting something that we don't want to have in a way that is very destructive, in a way that's very toxic, and in a way that's very useless, that makes us do things that we don't really want to be doing. And if you're experiencing that, I really, really suggest, highly recommend that you find a way, you start just by observing how your brain is thinking all of those thoughts. How your brain is just thinking all of those thoughts and accepting them. Accepting does not mean you agree with them, that you cheer for them or whatever. Accepting is just like the fact of what's happening in your brain, and you just look at them. If you have difficulty, you can always write. I highly recommend writing, or putting your voices on the audio message for yourself, whatever the way that serves you. Observing just simply of stating of the facts of how your brain is thinking now. And then once you observe and accept that this is what's happening, this is what you're producing, you keep producing in reaction to other events or in yourself, then what do you want to do with it? Do you want to keep doing it or no? Ask yourself, what's the purpose of keep doing it? Does it really help you? Right? Because oftentimes we believe that, well, if we criticize others, or if we get together with other people and judge someone else for whatever they're doing that we don't approve, and we reject their behavior, so we keep talking about it, does that really serve us? Is that really the way that we want to connect with other people? Right? And the same goes with ourselves. How do we want to connect with ourselves? By really rejecting ourselves and hating ourselves and not accepting ourselves? Or we want to connect with ourselves because we just accept ourselves. We just love ourselves for who we are, the way we are, and how we're trying to make things better if we are. Or how we're just looking at whatever's happening in our brains with compassion, with love, and see what we can do about it every day if necessary. Because whatever we're thinking, whatever we are choosing to think, are generating all kinds of feelings. And those feelings are then making us to be showing up in the world the way that maybe we don't really want to show up. And we're getting the results that we don't like. And then the cycle continues until we break the cycle by looking at those thoughts and deciding, what do we want to do with them? And what if we thought differently? What if we decided to feel differently? What if we decided to connect with people, with ourselves, in the way that accepts ourselves and not rejects ourselves? How would our lives be? Okay, my friends, this is what I have for you today. I'm really, really advocating that you have a look at which are the ways that you might be rejecting yourself, parts of yourself, and how you can turn that rejection into acceptance. How you can bring your awareness to what ways you can accept yourself and what ways you want to do things differently if you think that's not serving you. Have a beautiful week, everyone, and I'll talk to you next Friday. And if you like coaching on this, by the way, you're so welcome to come over and we will find a way to get you from rejecting to accepting, loving, and thriving with who you are, to getting whatever results you want. Okay, bye.